Hello and welcome back. So last time I was using this ship with a DPS focused fit and it did perform quite well. It does have nice DPS and it does have quite alpha damage as well. Now this time I'll be focusing on the tank build for this ship, since this ship does offer 3 slots in the weapon rigs, and I was quite curious to see how much resistances I can get for this ship. And as you can see, most of my resistances are at the moment over 50%, and if I were to use better rigs, then I am sure that I would be able to even get 60%, which is also very nice. Now, since I won't be using the particle accelerators, that means that my DPS will go down, but the weapons still do a lot of damage, and they still do quite well actually. And that means even without the accelerators, I can do quite well. And of course, the medium slots are going to be the same. Now, the low slots I did use, and I will be using a damage control, and that module is very important, and you will see later how much bonus it can give you if it is activated. Now I also have a question, since at the moment I am looking to buy a MOA or a Vexor Navy. I am curious to know which one of these ships would you like to see first, the MOA or the Vexor Navy. The MOA is the tier 5 cavalry cruiser, and it offers some very interesting attributes which I am very curious at testing out, since I think I can make the MOA be very tanky, and potentially I can use that ship to clear the storyline missions at close range. And I think that the ship is also using railguns, so that will be a perfect opportunity to test out that weapon system as well. And overall, the ship is really nice, and I will buy it eventually. I mean, eventually I'll get both the MOA and the Vexor Navy, but at the moment I am curious to know which one you would like to see first. As for the Vexor Navy, that is a tier 6 Galante cruiser, and it is on the same rank as the Caracal Navy, and this ship is a drone DPS ship, and it does offer some very good attributes as well. So I am also very curious to fly and test this ship out, since those ships did catch my attention, and I am curious to see which one you would like to see first on the channel. Well, it will be time to demonstrate how the resistances would look like on this ship when used in combat. Now, in most cases, I use the damage control if I have to withstand a lot of incoming damage, since with the damage control I would have over 80% resistances on all of the damage types, as you will see here. And also, the damage control will increase your resistance on all of the structures on the ship. That includes the armor and the hull as well. So it is a very good universal module if you want to increase all of your resistances, and that makes this ship very tanky. 67,000 defense, which is nice. Of course, it could be better, and it will be a lot higher once I get the Battlecruiser skills leveled up. So I do expect around 120,000 defense points with this current fit if I were to have maxed out Battlecruiser skills. But even 67,000 points is nice, and the 85% resistances are going to be very handy in combat. Now, I am also looking forward to try this ship out in the storyline missions, since I think this ship might perform really well in them, and at the moment I am in the process of doing enough missions to unlock a storyline mission, so I'll be testing out this ship in the next storyline probably. But for the ordinary advanced missions and for the more rare advanced missions, this ship will perform really nice, and it should withstand a lot of incoming damage with this fit. Now, keep in mind that my rigs aren't the best, and I don't use the tier 4 or tier 3 rigs, I use the tier 1 rigs, and if I were to use tier 2 or tier 3 or even tier 4 rigs, that my resistances would be around 60 or 70% by default, and that means with this current fit, if I were to use those rigs, I would have around maybe 90% or 95% resistance, which is really nice, and that would make this ship very, very tanky, and in a lot of cases perfect for surviving incoming attacks at gates, since I have to admit, while traveling to these locations where I did have these missions, I was attacked at couple gates, couple times, and I didn't fire back because I didn't want the aggro, but the damage control did help at reducing the incoming damage by a lot, and I can say that I will also be investing in a better damage control in the future. Now, the one that I use currently is the one that you will find in the storyline missions, and it is working quite well. It is quite nice, but the ones that are in the higher meta level are going to be a lot better, and I'll be saving up enough ISK to get one of these as well. And of course that includes a better invulnerability field and better shield booster, since at the moment I am still using Mark 5. I am almost tier 7, and at tier 7 I need to start using faction modules a lot. And as you can see, the DPS on this ship is still quite nice, and the ship is still doing a very good job at taking out all of these rats. And it is impressive that the ship did retain its damage output even without the particle accelerators. Now, having particle accelerators is definitely a very good thing, and the proper way to use the ship is probably to use the particle accelerators, since you can get the ship up to 1000 DPS without a problem. And I'll be actually trying to get 1000 DPS on this ship. I just need good rigs at the moment. And once I obtain the good rigs, I will be trying to see what's the maximum possible DPS output on this ship. But I am very confident that I can get 1000 DPS with ease with this ship, since if you remember in the last beta, this ship was indeed overpowered, and I did manage to get 2.5k DPS on this ship, and that was enough to melt pretty much everything that was flying at the time. And that was indeed very impressive. But now, since the ship was nerfed, the DPS also was nerfed, and now the ship is a lot more balanced. And of course that means that I'll be testing out the DPS on the ship once more, but that time I'll be using better rigs. But so far I have to say the tank fit for this ship is working, and it does do a good job. Now, one thing that you should keep in mind is that this ship doesn't have a very stable capacitor, and that means you should use the rigs to increase the capacitor volume or capacitor recharge rate, because this ship can run out of capacitor very quickly. One thing to keep in mind is that the weapons, the medium decomposers, do not have good tracking, and that means close targets that are very fast and that are small are going to be almost impossible to hit with this ship. And that means in these missions you should sort the targets by distance, and you should always target the closest ship and the fastest ship, since the one that's closest usually is the one that's fastest. And your primary targets in this case should be frigates and destroyers. In storyline missions, if you do storyline missions with this ship, in a lot of cases the fast ships are going to be cruisers and battlecruisers, so you would have to warp at 100 kilometers, and then you would have to wait for them to approach you. then it will be easier to differentiate between the targets, and then it will be easier to isolate the primary target. Now, at the moment, I think later on in the video I did make a mistake, and I did let one small ship get close to me by accident, and that will demonstrate what can happen if a small ship does approach these ships. But so far everything is going according to plan, and I am clearing those rats very fast. There is a significant difference between this ship and between the destroyer. The destroyer does have shorter range and it is a lot faster, but the destroyers are fragile, and I'll admit it is kind of difficult to fly that ship. But of course, if you use good rigs and if you focus on the range, you can make the destroyer to have around 30 to 40 kilometer range, which is indeed impressive and it is very nice. And also keep in mind, the destroyer is also equipped with the decomposers, and it offers also excellent DPS, which is a common thing for the new ships. And let's see, two more ships left to be destroyed. I think this will be the last wave, I'm not quite sure. Now, comparing this ship to the other navy ships is kind of difficult, since this ship is kind of on the same level as a tier 6 cruiser, and I don't know how this ship will perform in PvP against any tier 6 navy ship. And when I get when I get my DPS fit and when I get my weapon rigs, I will attempt to do solo PvP with this ship, since I am very curious to see if I can one hit most of the destroyers and frigates. And of course, I am very curious to see what the damage output will be on the cruisers, since this ship can do over 1,500 alpha damage, and it does have a very rapid cycle. So in theory, this ship should be able to melt most of the cruisers in the game very quickly. And of course, that is left to be tested out. Okay, now I have to say, this ship does still feel the same as it was feeling back in the last beta, although the damage output is quite lower, and of course the ship does lack couple medium and couple low slots, but that's fine, since after all this is a special edition ship and it is a prototype. But as a prototype and as a free ship and as a gift, it is actually very usable and it is performing quite well. Now, I would still use this ship mostly for DPS, and this ship can be fitted for fleets, and in a fleet that has decent logistics, I think these ships will be very lethal, and it will be very interesting to see how such fleets would work. And if I were to happen to be in such a fleet, then I would make sure to record that, since I think it will be interesting to see how the fleet will perform compared to fleets of other tier 6 navy ships or other classic tier 6 cruisers or frigates. Now, I am still kind of thinking about that banana destroyer, since that ship is kind of... I think that ship will become a meme at one point, because that ship is kind of already iconic for the game. And I do like the banana destroyer, since that ship is actually very interesting. And I think when I get proper weapon rigs for that ship as well, I will also return to that ship to see how it will perform, since I think that I still didn't use the full potential of the destroyer, and I think that these prototypes can be fitted to be very powerful, and they can be fitted to be very powerful ships. And I am very curious to test that theory out. But so far I am quite happy, and I am quite satisfied with the performance of this prototype. The ship is the ship is going alongside of my expectations from it. Now my expectations were based on the 40% nerf that was announced when the last beta ended, and so far I'm sure to say that the nerf didn't affect the usability of the ship a lot. You can still use the ship and you can still have fun flying the ship. Alright, well, time to jump on the next mission. Let's warp in. And so far I have to say I have a good time flying this ship. It does get the job done, and of course it is kind of different from using the Caracal Navy, because the Caracal Navy is having a faster rate of fire, and of course it is using missiles, and of course it is a lot faster, and overall that I got used to the Caracal at the moment. But this ship so far does offer better alpha damage. The Caracal Navy does have around 950 alpha damage at the moment, while this ship can hit up to 2.5 thousand alpha damage, which is more. But the Caracal Navy does have slightly better DPS, and it uses missiles, and of course missiles being missiles, they cannot miss, and most ships that are shot at by missiles will take the full damage from the missiles. Now the decomposers are very good at, well, the medium decomposers are very good at least 10 plus kilometers. You should not allow any enemy ship to go under 10-kilometer range from you, since if they do, you might have a hard time tracking them with these decomposers, since the decomposers do have very poor tracking. And if you see a small ship that is approaching very fast, and if you cannot destroy that ship before it reaches below 10 km from you, then I would suggest warping out, since you do not want a elite ship to approach this ship in a storyline mission. If that happens, and if you are unable to destroy that ship, then things might go bad. But of course, this is a prototype and you can repair the ship if you happen to lose it. Now you should keep all ships above 10-kilometer range from you, because in the storyline missions a lot of the smaller ships are also very fast, and they can get close very quickly. And a lot of these faction ships also do carry disruptors, so you have to make sure either to destroy them before they get close, or warp out if they are getting too close, since if they get too close, your weapons are going to be unable to track them, and in that case you risk at losing the ship. Now, so far, the normal advanced missions are easier, and they do not have the danger of having these elite ships that do carry the disruptors. Of course, there is a exception, and the rare advanced missions, those that usually have 4 million ISK and up rewards, they usually can have one or two of these elite ships, and in that case you have to focus on the elite ship first. But besides that, you aren't going to have any problems at keeping most of the ships at range, since most of the ships are already slow by default. So you don't have to worry about that too much. And as you can see, the tank and the fit is working quite well. The ship is quite tanky, and the capacitor is also quite stable, since I do have the capacitor battery, and the capacitor battery is helping me a lot. Of course, because the ships do have such weak capacitors, you should have a capacitor battery with you at all times. It is not necessary if you use rigs that will increase capacitor recharge, or that will increase the overall capacity, but at the moment I like to use the capacitor battery since it is the safest way to go. And some of these ships also do carry neutralizers and Nosferatus, so having a capacitor battery is always a good idea. Now, speaking of capacitor batteries, in the medium slots, I think it is also very good to have dual or even triple webs, since if you have a lot of webs, then you have the chance at actually slowing down a fast moving ship at close distances, and in that case your weapons should be able to hit a target that's practically moving 0 meters per second, since in that case the target will be stationary, and if the target is stationary, in that case the weapons can hit the target, which I was testing out in the last beta, and it did work. But for some reason I did forget to put and to test out the triple web fit. I guess I'll have to do that another time, since it did save me actually a lot in the last beta, since I was quite clumsy with this ship back in the day, but now I am actually doing a good job at keeping the targets at a distance. And I am, as you can see, I am always targeting the closest ship, and so far I am indeed very impressed by this battlecruiser. I know it is 40% nerfed from the original prototype, but it still gets the job done, and it is, after all, a very unique ship, and it is a special edition ship. And as a special edition ship, they might be very expensive in the future, since people will lose them, or they will sell them, or in some cases they will destroy them. So keep these ships safe, and hopefully one day they will have very high price on the market as a collectionable item. And I am very curious to see what other ships we will be getting from the developers as gifts. Well, I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that this was helpful. I did have a lot of fun playing this ship, and I am indeed impressed by this prototype. With that being said, stay safe, take care, fly safe, and I'll see you next time.